So, Patty, I've been in a situation before where someone I knew committed suicide, and the person, it was the son of a friend of mine, and
Mhm.
another assistant principal, and when I was an assistant principal. And I I remember that there were a lot of people when that happened who really felt like, oh, if he only had known how many people cared about him, if he only knew how many people loved him, if he only knew how devastated this would make his family, if only, if only, if only. And I remember thinking, does anything really help? Like, is there anything that can really be done to prevent suicide? Like, do these suicide prevention hotlines really work? Do seeing counselors really work? What is just being nice to people in the cafeteria? I think there's this belief that if the other kids were just nice to them in the cafeteria, that they wouldn't commit suicide. Like, is there anything that can really stop it?
So yes and no. So it's very tricky. We struggle in our culture, and I think as individuals, with the difference between influence and control. So we can influence other people, but we can never control other people. So if someone commits suicide, it is on them. We didn't have control over that, and we can't ever feel like it's anyone else's fault. At the same time, we do influence each other. We do have an impact in the way that we interact with other people. And I think we are responsible to do our best to interact with people, to influence them as positively as possible. So, you know, your example with the kid in the cafeteria, well, sure, if the kid who everyone's picking on and being mean to, is that going to contribute to their feelings of despair and hopelessness? Yeah, of course. Is it going to cause them to commit suicide? No. Different kids are going to handle that in different ways. And that's true, you know, in any situation that you might come up with. So are there things that prevent suicide? Yes. Do suicide hotlines work? Yes. So if the person is amenable to being influenced, if they're able to accept or hear help, get help, reach out for help, can we help them? Yes, we can.
So
Can we
would it be
100% prevent it? No.
would it be a good idea then for teachers to or schools as a whole to have like posters in the hall or in classrooms that are advertising like suicide prevention, like help is available, call this number if you need help, or and if so, like at what age? Because you don't want that in a kindergarten classroom.
Right. You don't. I think yes. I think most school counseling offices probably do have those kinds of posters. I think having them in high schools in bathrooms, or you know, I've seen them in places like that. I think yes. You know, I think it does two things. You know, earlier we were talking about, should we talk about this with people? Should we bring it up? So I think that it gives people permission to talk about it if they need to. And yes, we want them to have resources. So some people are going to be more able to seek anonymous help, like from a hotline, than to seek help from somebody that they know, asking the teacher or the school counselor or whatever, for whatever reason.
Thank you. So can you just kind of wrap up the bottom line for educators vis-a-vis suicide of students?
Well, I think that it's important for educators to be aware that it's a problem, which I think educators are aware, you know, like, and aware of, you know, some of the things that they can do, but it's never an educator's job to prevent suicide or to, you know, take on responsibility for that. I think educators need to be aware of the issues and willing to talk about it with someone and make a referral. Like, let me walk you down to the school counselor's office, or let me help you find a phone number of, you know, a counseling center in our community that can help, or whatever, but not take responsibility for addressing that directly.
So what I hear you saying is that if we're an educator and if we have the unthinkable happen, that a student we know or have taught commits suicide, that we should not beat ourselves up thinking,
Right.
oh, I missed this sign. I should have done this. Had I done X, Y, Z, they definitely would still be alive. That we don't have that kind of power.
Exactly. No, it's not, and I don't think it's fair or reasonable to ask teachers to be mental health professionals. You know, it's just not your job to do that.
Well, and I know that because of my connection with you, I know a lot of mental health professionals, and
Right.
they've had clients commit suicide. Even mental health professionals can't prevent it all the time.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
Absolutely. None of us control other people. We can only do our best to influence them.
One thing that I thought of earlier was that you said that the role of hopelessness. And I think that is one area where educators have control, is in developing a climate of hope. That's something that we can do.
Yeah, you don't have control, but you have influence. So
we have influence.
You can create a climate of hope or do your best to, and that doesn't control everyone in your classroom having hope. But it's nice. It's good to have a climate of hope.
I like that. I would like a climate of hope. I like that. Patty, I want to thank you so much. This issue is one that troubles educators, probably because of what we think about, like we wish we were in control. As educators, we are in control of a lot of things. We're in control of grading systems. We're in control of a lot of things. And this makes us feel out of control in the worst possible way. Like the only thing worse than losing a child who's a student is to, and I know you understand this because your husband is a teacher. I probably should have mentioned this, that your husband is a early elementary teacher. I'm not saying a grade level because he teaches multiple grades in a Montessori school, and that school lost a student this summer who had been your husband's student. And so you know what a teacher goes through when a student dies, and to have that student die at their own hand is its own trauma. How likely is it, and I'll just end with this last question, but how likely is it that if you have a student at your school or a student who has been your student, how common is it for a teacher to need to like see a counselor themselves or have someone to talk to about that themselves? It seems like it hasn't happened to me, but it seems like it would be very traumatic.
Of course it is. It's very traumatic. And as a mental health professional, I believe in therapy, so I often recommend that people talk to someone. The truth is, though, that talking about it is what's important. It doesn't have to be talking to a therapist. If people have friends that they feel able to really share their feelings with, or other kinds of support systems where they can really talk, that's just as useful most of the time. And if the distress lingers, if it goes, if other people seem to be recovering and moving on and you're not, that's the time to really think about, okay, this is impacting me more seriously and I probably need some professional help.
Patty, thank you so much for your expertise and your time. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's always fun to talk with you, Lisa.
I know this is what you signed on for. So just for those of you watching this, Patty and I have been best friends since we were 18, and we turned 50 I turned 50 in a couple of weeks. She's 6 weeks younger, which she usually rubs in.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, she says those are her favorite 6 weeks of the year between the time that I turn the new age and she doesn't. But anyway, I'm very grateful, and I think this is really going to help some teachers. So thanks for your time.
You're welcome.